It's Football Friday. Time to be loud and cheer on our Tokoi Creek Toros as they officially open the season on the road tonight against First Coast. But there is also a time to be quiet, as we read in Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. Did you catch those words in verse 7? A time to be silent and a time to speak. So, how do we know when to be quiet? Calvin Coolidge, who was the 30th president of the United States, was known as a reserved man who spoke very little. One day, when a reporter attempted to interview him, the conversation went like this. The reporter said, Do you wish to say anything about the war threat in Europe? Coolidge replied, No. Do you have anything to say about the strike in the clothing factories? Coolidge replied, No. Do you have anything to say about the League of Nations? And Coolidge replied, No. Would you care to comment on the farm production problem? And Coolidge replied, No. As the reporter was leaving the room, Coolidge unexpectedly called him back and said with a smile, Don't quote me. The Bible says that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, and that there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. Never allow yourself to be pressured into saying something that you don't want to say, or get drawn in when you don't feel like talking. Silence isn't always a lack of communication. It can be a form of communication, and it can be a very effective one. Proverbs 29:11 tells us, Fools give vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. One thing that is for sure is this: what you don't say today, you won't have to explain or apologize for tomorrow. If your tendency is to speak without thinking first, or you often have to say something even when you don't have anything constructive to add to the conversation, take time to weigh the situation carefully and ask God for wisdom before deciding if you should speak or be quiet. Have you ever heard the famous quote, "It is better to remain quiet and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt"? The earliest reference found for this quote was a 1907 book by Maurice Switzer, and it seems to contain a lot of original material, and it includes the statement, "It is better to remain silent at the risk of being thought a fool than to talk and remove all doubt of it." So it's slightly different phrasing, but it is believed that this is what evolved to generate the modern common version. But long before 1907, Proverbs 17:28 laid the foundation for this quote. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. We hope to see you in worship this Sunday at 9 or 11 a.m. And if you can't make it in person, be sure to join us online on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel at the Village Church at World Golf Village. And remember, know when to be quiet. Have a great weekend. I'll be quiet now.